Hi folks, welcome back to Gardening on the Cusp with Ray. Here we are June 22nd, just past summer solstice, and we're in the dog days of summer. It's really hot out there. So we're going to tour around and see how the garden's doing with all this heat. But first, we'll enjoy this little room here. Somebody along the way planted this beautiful grape arbor. And you can see how old it is by the trunks here of the grape. And it's just wonderful that maybe you plant stuff for yourself, but it's always nice for later generations to enjoy, or later other folks to enjoy. So I'm really grateful to whoever planted this grape arbor. So when I bought the house in 2013, it was already here. And we have these beautiful hostas here, just a nice green background, calming, cooling effect. And just a little punch of color with our red chairs and our red tables, and sometime I make a nice red carpet to go down here. So we call this the Red Room, and we enjoy it on the hot days of summer. It's just nice to sit in here with a drink and have a visit with a friend. Thanks.
Okay.
So I also would like to introduce Rob Plaskett to the group here, to the gang. And Joe's busy with her food truck, so Rob's taken over doing the videography and editing. And thanks to him, we'll be able to put some shows on the air. So thanks, Rob. Check on the romaine lettuce, and this was planted a few weeks ago, and you can see it's doing well. So it gets the morning sun, the late afternoon sun, but not the hot summer sun. And I like the romaine because it's kind of the concentrated, you get a nice growth, and we'll get a nice head on it. And because we have such a small growing area, it's nice to get the volume of growing in a nice head. And here we have some mesclun mix that was just seeded on Sunday, believe it or not, and it's already popping up. So I'm just going to leave it covered for a bit now, and I'll water it. And yeah, the patch over there, I've harvested probably about 3 times. So I want to get a new batch going, because after a while it gets kind of tough and it's not quite so enjoyable. So here we have our, and I will be starting more romaine. And when we look at the bean tent over there, I'll be planting the romaine lettuce underneath the bean tent, because it's going to be a nice little shady spot there for it. So we're looking for shade for our summer lettuce. So now this is where we had the second crop of lettuce, and now I've pulled it out because it's getting quite hot now. And I had some basil growing in the greenhouse, so we put the basil in to fill its place. And I like growing the green and the purple basil. Sometimes people aren't used to the purple basil, but it's wonderful when you're making a Greek salad or a tomato salad. Just if you cut up the red basil and the green basil, it makes nice color in the salad. And it also makes wonderful herb vinegars. Later on, when we start harvesting our basil, we'll talk about how to make a herb vinegar. It just makes a beautiful, flavorful, colorful vinegar. So these are the edible potted peas, and you can just see they're just starting to form now. So these are the ones you can eat flat, or you can eat them filled out, so they're nice and tender, and you don't have to shell them. You can eat the pea and the shell and everything. And then over here we have, I'm going to be ripping out this lettuce now. I've got some Swiss chard and some kale growing that was in the grow room. It's just getting used to being outdoors in the greenhouse now. And one evening I'll pull this spinach out, because now I finished harvesting all those little leaves. I've got enough, and I've got lots in the freezer from the first batch. So now we'll put the Swiss chard and the kale in, and that'll be our summer greens.
Okay.
So these, I'm just finishing off, these are the green onions from the onion multipliers. And now I'm starting a batch from seed. I should have started them a little earlier, but that's the way things happen. So these ones I got from Sharon, and I just planted them out last Sunday, and they're starting to green up already. And I'm going to be planting some more from seed here too as well. And just to get some green onions through the summertime. And then there's another batch I have over here that are looking pretty good. And then we'll just keep seeding more radishes. And there's all kinds, like these are the black Spanish round. I've never tried those before. I've always grown cherry bell, so I thought I'd try something new. So the cherry bells are doing well. I'm a little bit disappointed with, these are the watermelon radishes, but so far they haven't developed very much on the bottom yet, but we'll see how they do. So anyway, it's just nice to keep more greens and little radishes and stuff growing through the summertime. So these are the edible potted peas, and you can just see they're just starting to form now. So these are the ones you can eat flat, or you can eat them filled out, so they're nice and tender, and you don't have to shell them. You can eat the pea and the shell and everything. And then over here we have, I'm going to be ripping out this lettuce now. I've got some Swiss chard and some kale growing that was in the grow room. It's just getting used to being outdoors in the greenhouse now. And one evening I'll pull this spinach out, because now I finished harvesting all those little leaves. I've got enough, and I've got lots in the freezer from the first batch. So now we'll put the Swiss chard and the kale in, and that'll be our summer greens. We're at the shelling peas, and you can see I've put the second tie up just because we don't want them to fall over. And they're doing really well. They're nice. We've got a nice thick volume of plants. We'll have lots of good production, and they're just starting to make little seed pods now. So I'm looking forward to the pea harvest.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're in the broccoli patch, and I harvested last weekend. You can see here where I cut the heads. And I was going to harvest the weekend before, but I just didn't get around to it. But it was great that I didn't, because that whole week that they were here, it was a cool, wet week, and they really got nice and big. So actually I was quite pleased. I was thinking I was going to get a very small crop, but they actually were a good size. And now you can see that the side shoots are happening already. And this one's really growing fast. So yeah, when you buy broccoli, get ones that grow side shoots, because now I can harvest these all summer long, and then get, for fresh eating and for freezing. So it's great production. And then we'll just pop over here to the Brussels sprouts. So now we're at the Brussels sprouts, and they're not nearly near producing yet, but they're just starting to form. So what you do is you take these bottom leaves and you break them off, and that gives room for the little Brussels sprouts to form. And eventually, after towards the end of the season, they'll be about this high, and they kind of look like a palm tree. They're really quite neat. It's the long stem with all these little Brussels sprouts on it, and this little rosette of leaves on top. So they're really quite cute.
Okay.
So now we're in the corn and the squash patch, and these are plants that love the heat. So this is my first batch, and there's a saying they should be knee-high by the 1st of July. So I think we'll probably just make it. And then that's my second batch there. So I like to stagger plant them, just because it gives that we have fresh corn later in the season. And you'll see through the garden I have little spots wherever I can find a little spot. Like here's a little spot here too. I just tucked a little bit of corn in there too as well. And they're wind pollinated, so you want to plant them in blocks, because it's the wind that's got to blow the pollen from the top onto the ears. We'll have to work at keeping them out of the corn patch. But I figured I can lead them into the asparagus patch and over into the pathway there, so hopefully we'll have enough room for them. It's always tricky, having a room in the garden for all you want to grow. And while we're here, actually, we must look at the cauliflower, and they're doing quite well. I got them over here. They have a little bit of shade during the day, so it's not quite so hot, because again, the brassicas always like it a little bit cooler. But they're doing okay, and I would have liked to get them mulched, but we'll see. Maybe this Sunday I'll get time to get them mulched, and then that helps keeps the soil cooler.
Cool.
So you can see by the pictures there that there's roses come in all kinds of colors and forms. The important thing when you're buying roses is to get roses that are on their own rootstock. Years ago, when I first started gardening, they always were grafted, and it was always a problem. You always had to hill up so you didn't lose the grafted top, and you wouldn't have the root bottom coming up. But nowadays they're on their own rootstock, so you don't have to worry about that. If they freeze back, it's going to come true from the base. The other thing you want to look for is for disease resistance. Nowadays, there's a lot of varieties now that are resistant to black spot, which is probably one of the worst diseases for roses. It makes so that your foliage is all defoliated and falls off. So look for disease resistance, look for on their own rootstock, and then the added plus is you can get ones with a nice scent too as well. So it's easier to enjoy roses nowadays. They're much easier to look after than they were years ago. Thanks. So continuing on with what's blooming in the garden, this is false indigo, or Baptisia australis. And australis just tells us it comes from Australia. So it's a great plant if you have a sunny location, sandy soil. It's really a tough plant. So this area here, I don't really do much fertilizing out here, and yet it still does well. I do some watering now and then, but I don't do a lot of fertilizing. So it's just a great tough plant. And then after it finishes blooming, it just makes a nice bush. So again, I have the stakes here, and I'll be tying it up just so it won't fall out. And then it's just a nice attractive green bush once it's finished blooming.
Okay.
Again, these are some of the Ito peonies. This is I think this is Bartzarella, the yellow one. I'm not sure the name of this variety here too, but they make such a great show on the early summer scene. And we had looked at the ones over there earlier, and then this is a little bit later variety. And they're just making a beautiful show now. There's huge blooms, and they're just fantastic.